This is the Atlanta Small Business Show.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us on another edition of the Atlanta Small Business Show. The franchise business model has solidified its place in our economy as a stable producer of ownership and employment opportunities. It has the potential to be a lucrative alternative to startups with minimal risk, making it a great option for would-be entrepreneurs. Today, we're pleased to welcome back Leslie Cuban, and she is here to discuss trends in the franchise industry. And welcome back to the Atlanta Small Business Show. So glad you could join us today.
Thank you.
Sure.
Glad to be back.
Sure. When you were on last time, and obviously you're a franchise expert, and we got a lot of great comments from our viewers and subscribers and such, and said, hey, you got to bring Leslie back because we got a lot more questions and we want to get brought up to speed as to what's happening in the franchise world. As you know, many of our viewers are small business owners and entrepreneurs, and I think the term is wantrepreneurs. Those that are thinking about jumping in and opening up a business. And a franchise is, needless to say, I don't need to tell you, a great way to start a small business, right? Because the whole formula has already been laid down for the individual, right?
Particularly for the individual who would like to own a business but may not have their burning idea or passion for a particular kind of business to start.
Sure,
that's who you really see thriving in franchise systems.
Yeah.
They're people with good skills, ambition, the goals to succeed, but are better suited to something where there is a model already developed and a concept already formulated versus them trying to figure that out on their own.
Yeah, for sure. And it's probably much better to open up a Subway franchise or a Firehouse Subs rather than Billy Bob Subs. You know what I mean? You're going to get that instant name recognition right out there, and therefore a customer base.
And that is one of the many reasons to at least consider franchising as a form of entrepreneurship when someone is interested in starting their own business.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about how the demographics for franchise in the franchise industry has changed somewhat, right? Talk to us about that.
It's really interesting. For many years, there was very much a poster child for who the ideal candidate is to own a business. For many years, it's been someone who's coming out of a corporate profession. They're in their probably 50 to 60 years old, achieved a management leadership level, married with 2.5 kids. I mean, there's very much a descriptor of who the candidate is. And that is still very much a very well qualified candidate for franchising. But what's really interesting is as time has passed, there are these other demographics interestingly really rising up. I see this change in my business regularly, that some of the fringes are really becoming more mainstream.
Okay.
I think Generation X, those are my people.
Right.
We are now of an age where we've developed a level of skill sets, have developed some assets. Many of us have working spouses who have equal earning power to us. So it sets, younger generations are set up for success more so maybe even than their prior generations. Because of their thought process of entering their workforce in their careers. It's just a different mindset. So we're seeing interest and ability and qualifications earlier on.
And in the last 10 to 15 years, being an entrepreneur is all the rage, with shows like Shark Tank and The Profit and so many other different types of businesses. You hear so many cool startups that you see either on TV or on YouTube or on the internet that you go, oh, I want to do that. I could start a home-based business or open up an office somewhere and be a consultant or be some sort of a specialist out there, and it doesn't take a whole lot of money to do it, right? So
there are business models all over the board, franchising and otherwise, and technology has really in a lot of ways brought the cost of operations down. Businesses where someone had to be on site and really had their thumb on things that would limit one's own personal flexibility, but also their ability to scale, that's really been changed dramatically. The ability for remote management, semi-passive management, is huge.
Okay, so for the people that are watching, what's semi-passive management?
Yeah, that is where you're still actively engaged in the business. You're never going to hear me say a business can be started on an absentee basis.
Okay, yeah, that would be tough, wouldn't it?
Yeah, meaning that you don't have to put any time or attention into it. But there are a lot of franchise models that are developed where the intention is that you're going to be hiring some management right away.
Right.
So the person needs to bring some leadership ability and comfort with that to the table in the beginning. It just means that you or I, the owner, we don't have to be physically tethered there all the time.
Okay.
A lot of my clients
Okay.
are working,
Right.
but they know that wherever they're working, they're probably only going to be there for 2 or 3 years.
Right.
That's the typical job tenure.
Right.
They'll be in another job search and would like to have another source of income,
Right.
at least start it.
A side hustle, as
Yeah,
they
a
say.
side hustle, a side gig, side hustle.
Right.
That would very much be in this bucket of what we call semi-passive.
Very cool. Very
Business
cool. Do you
opportunities.
find that there's people out there too that come to you and say, I am 55 years old and I want to look into a franchise because my kids are now in their late 20s, early 30s, and I think it would be a great thing to kind of put the money up for them, although still be maybe chairman of the board of that franchise or that franchisee, but really it's for the kids, you know?
And
do you see that?
I'm seeing that swelling in my business.
Really?
And part of it is the sexiness of entrepreneurship.
Sure.
Young adults in high school and college,
Right.
they see that. They're heroes.
Right.
And so they're predisposed to crafting a career
Sure.
on their own and not necessarily just assuming that you're going to go work for a big company
Right, right.
somewhere. So I see that grow every year in my business.
Okay, very cool.
Just in the last 6 months, I helped a family team, young bright man in his 20s, and his father is in the kind of the sunset area of his career.
Sure.
So the whole family's involved,
Oh,
but
that's
for
great.
different reasons. It's setting up a career for the son,
Right.
and something that that his father can be involved in,
Right.
as he's kind of leaving his
Sure.
big corporate
Sure.
career.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So to back up a little bit, what franchise brands do baby boomers pretty much gravitate towards? And of course the follow-up will be the other generations, but what do you see baby boomers and what types of franchises?
There's not, this is the fun part.
Okay.
It's all over the board.
It is, yeah.
And people aren't really gravitating towards specific brands as much
Okay.
as they are industries
Okay.
that leverage their skill set. Just in recent months, I've assisted a boomer. He was an executive with a telecom company. He now owns a commercial window cleaning business.
Okay, wow, that's a
But it
that's a
suits his
change.
lifestyle.
Sure.
He's going to involve his family.
Sure.
It's going to check all the boxes that he had for choosing a business. He never came into my office asking for a window cleaning business.
Right, right.
But that's what ended up being the right solution
Right.
for the mix of needs and goals
Right.
that he had.
And again, just for the
this.
people that are watching that may be new to seeing you on the Atlanta Small Business Show, tell us once again what service you do provide to individuals that come in and say, I want to open up a business, and then they get in touch with you, right?
Yep.
And what do you do? Walk them through to say, let's kind of do a checklist. What kind of business is going to best suit you, and then talk about the franchise?
A corny analogy is our business is like Match.com for people who would
I love that.
like to own a business but need help figuring out, A, are they really ready to own a business?
Right.
B, is franchising the right form of entrepreneurship?
Right.
And furthermore, C, well, which business? Which
Right.
franchise opportunity out of the thousands
Sure.
available? So
Sure.
we take people through, there's a lot of science behind it. We
Okay.
use an assessment tool that has proven to be very helpful in pretty quickly starting to divine the model of what characteristics would be well suited to that particular individual.
Sure.
So the right business for John might be Eddie's worst nightmare.
Yeah, sure.
So it's very much a customized. We've
Yeah.
got to figure out not only what's a good business, but what would be
Right.
good for you.
Sure. And then I'm sure there's those that come into your office and say, I want to own a Subway franchise and I want it to be near my house. So where do I sign? How do we get that going? And it doesn't work that way, does it? Could very well be that whole territory is already spoken for and there's no franchises for sale, and you might have to, the only one you can get is maybe 30 miles away. So do you still want the Subway franchise, or do you want maybe another sandwich type franchise that you can get, close to your home? Do you find that?
This is a common kind of conundrum that most people face at some point in this research journey.
Sure.
That, if it's already a household name,
Yeah.
the best areas for it were taken a long time ago from people who entered the system when it was a younger brand.
Right.
And so if someone really is of the mind of, I want to grow a business, I want to have a lot of future expansion potential,
Right.
I'm rooted in this community, this is where I'd like to have the business.
Sure.
And if it's a popular area like the Alpharettas, the Roswells,
Yeah,
the East Cobbs
Sure.
of Atlanta, we have to look towards younger emerging franchise systems to be able to check those
Or for
boxes.
the franchise, for the prospective franchisee to then maybe go further out to start to think in terms of, north of Cumming or some of the outlying areas, or maybe up by the lake or somewhere it's not fully developed. Of course, the downside of that is you're not going to have the audience that you're going to have in maybe an Atlanta or an Alpharetta or a Roswell or something like that, right?
The biggest driver on this is people's lifestyle.
Okay.
I work with a lot of people who have, spent 3 hours a day in the car commuting to and from work.
Yeah.
They live on an airplane.
Yeah,
and
sure.
one of their big drivers to own their own business is they don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
They want to
Right.
know their neighbors. They want to serve their own local community.
Right.
Lifestyle and having some control and say-so
Sure.
over that. So for a lot of people, it's like, well, I'll just go get another job
Right.
if I'm going to have to go commute,
Sure.
20 miles to where my business is.
Right,
So this
right.
is, some people are willing to consider that for a more established, well-known brand, but in my experience, most are not.
Right, right. And let's talk a little bit about the younger generation. Those either Generation X or maybe the millennials that are coming along. What trends do you see there, and what are they looking for?
So what the business is more important to them than maybe to their parents.
Okay.
Like just as an example, I've got 2 clients. They're in their 20s. They've had the assistance of their parents, and they've chosen superfood health cafes.
Okay.
So they're health and wellness oriented.
Right.
What they sell in their business matters to them. So they're a very socially conscious bunch. Education-oriented types of businesses are very popular amongst that generation.
Okay.
Many of them have
Okay.
young kids,
Okay.
so it's something
Sure.
that they can
Yeah.
relate to. Or they may gravitate towards franchises where the franchisor is philanthropy is a key part of their offering.
Okay.
There's a maid service franchise that is very active with breast care awareness,
okay.
and so
Yeah.
so the younger generations are definitely more attuned to how is this business creating good.
Okay.
Not that the older
Okay.
generations aren't.
No, I know.
It's
Right,
just,
right.
It's
They're-
just higher
maybe the
on
older
list.
generations are more, what's the hot trend so I can make money from it, versus the kids that are like, well, the money's maybe secondary. We want to be doing right out there in the marketplace, right?
And the older generations, their main priority is preparing for their own retirement.
Yeah.
And if that's, maybe in a more agnostic type of business where it's a
Sure.
good service, it's a good product,
Sure.
but it's not necessarily saving the world.
Right.
That's okay because many of them have been through lots of job transitions.
Sure.
Pauses in their ability to contribute to their retirement.
Yeah.
So they're very security minded and are looking for more steady, tried and true,
Sure.
types of industries.
Yep.
Versus the more up and comers.
When somebody comes in and you consult with them and they say, okay, how fast am I going to make money from this? What do you typically tell them that there's no money for at least 6 months? Is it a year?
Yes.
Is it a year and a half? How much do I have to have, put aside, on my own personal money to live on, outside of what the franchise may or may not bring in?
I'm very clear
Okay.
with my clients that starting
clear.
a business is not a short-term income
No.
replacement
No,
strategy.
I think it's the biggest misconception a lot of people have.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think everybody would do it if you
Sure.
Could,
That's right.
come close to replacing your income in 6 months. So that's
Right.
that's the trade-off.
Okay.
But
That's right.
the way people deal with that is there's ways to deal with that. There's the semi-passive strategy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
half the people I work with.
And that's those would be people that don't leave their day job yet,
Right.
or their permanent gig, and they do the side hustle first, and maybe they bring a
Yes.
manager in or what have you. And even in a situation like that, though, you're still paying a key person to be the manager or what have you. So probably new business owners look at that and say, well, if I'm paying this guy $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year to run my business, maybe I could take that post and work, at that number as well, right?
It could be, but I work with a lot of high income earners.
Okay,
and
right. That can't afford to do that.
Stepping into that role
Sure.
right away wouldn't make sense.
Right.
But the semi-passive route, it's more of a 4 to 5 year strategy,
Sure.
where you've grown the business. Often, you need to develop multiple locations of that, and
Sure.
that takes some time.
Right,
So,
right.
but we have lots of clients who they plan for this. It's a 5 or 6 or 7 year bridge from what they're doing now into the choice of being a full-time business owner a few years down the road.
Right.
But it doesn't happen overnight.
So one of my friends is an owner, and this is kind of a follow-up topic here, but he owns 15 discount hair cutting places, right? And when I first talked to him about it, I said, I didn't know you knew how to cut hair. And he goes, I don't know how to cut hair. He said, I never cut hair before, and I never planned on cutting hair.
Right.
He said, and I said, oh, well, what made you get into that business? He goes, I saw a good return. I started out with a couple of them, and now I'm up to 15. In fact, he, in this case, has not quit his full-time job. He doesn't even plan on quitting for the next 10 or 15 years, which I thought was interesting. So talk about that, the fact that you don't necessarily need to be an expert in the field in which you buy a franchise, right?
And your friend is a perfect example of this. That this is one of my biggest educational opportunities that I have with people. Most people, when they start thinking about, I'm going to start a business or buy a business or a franchise, they think that their choices are only going to be about what their degree says or what their resume says.
Right, what their experience has been. Right. That's a good point. Yeah.
And the reality is, you have to have soft skills that can transfer into different types of businesses. Like your friend with the hair salons.
Right.
He has to have strong leadership ability.
He does.
To be able to do what he's doing.
Right, and also good accounting because he's an accountant.
Yep.
So he got into this by seeing one of his clients that owned a couple of hair, discount hair locations and thought, wow, this is a pretty good business. Looked into it from there and ended up, buying a few and then ended up with 15, but has not left his CPA job and doesn't plan to, as I mentioned. You know? So. Yeah. Do you find that to be the case with people?
That is, if they have good leadership talent.
Right.
So the semi-passive route is an option if there's some ifs. You have to have good leadership talent. It does take some capital. Most of these semi-passive businesses, whether they be storage units or hair salons or fitness centers or real estate rentals, salon suites, types of businesses. The common denominator is they have brick and mortar. And you're going to have staff. You have payroll.
That's right.
So there is a capital commitment that one has to be willing and able to make to that. There are plenty of funding tools and strategies. People are not just writing checks for those businesses. There's strategies around that, but you have to have leadership talent and some capital to be able to consider some of those types of more investor-owner strategies.
Do you find that, we'll change gears a little bit, do you find that most franchisors want you as a franchisee to make a commitment to multiple locations over a set period of time? We've spoken to some people on the show that have come in and said, well, I had to make a commitment of developing this area of 5 franchises over the course of the next 7 years. Otherwise, I couldn't get franchise number 1. I had to commit, to opening up all of these. Is that a trend, or is that franchisor specific?
It is franchisor specific. I see that more so in food service. That's pretty common actually in the restaurant world. That, but having said that, generally speaking, franchisors would prefer one person who has 5 than 5 people who have 1. It's less taxing on them. Those are typically more sophisticated business people that they don't need as many resources from the franchisor, and they can work more collaboratively as business partners. So generally speaking, yes, franchisors build models to scale, and they would like people that have the interest and ability to scale their business.
And also, it should be said that a lot of franchises out there don't make a whole pile of money to support, if somebody's planning on making $200,000-$300,000 a year to replace their income, you're probably not going to do it on one store in a lot of franchises that are out there. You might make 100, so you might need 3 or 4 or 5 locations to pick up that, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year paycheck, right?
In consumer-facing retail services. So hair salons, fitness centers, things like that, probably yes. But there's this whole world of business to business that people don't really equate with franchising, because it's not on the street corner with a big
me included.
Sign.
So sorry about that assumption, but talk to us about that.
So there's, for people who come from B2B sales backgrounds, they are wonderful candidates for business service franchises. That could be something in digital signage manufacturing. It could be staffing. There's building maintenance, commercial maintenance types of businesses. Usually with B2B, there's a sales component to it.
Okay.
It's relationship building with other business
Right.
owners. So that's the soft skill that often someone needs to be comfortable learning if they haven't done that before, or experience that they bring to the table. But we love B2B. There's IT managed services.
Yeah.
I've got a client, he's a very successful franchisee in an IT managed services business, and he was a sales guy.
Yeah.
He
And he
didn't
doesn't
come
have
from
multiple
any-
locations. He's got one office. Is that?
He's expanded into multiple territories.
Okay.
But that is far more lower cost
Yeah, sure.
in territory than physical brick and mortar locations.
And there's probably many franchises today where individuals can work right from their own home, an office in the home, and they have a franchise of one sort or another, but they just don't require office and overhead and a lot of manpower, and
Like me.
Yeah, like
I'm
you.
I'm a franchisee, and
there you go.
I need my cell phone and my laptop and good Wi-Fi, and I'm good to go for the most part.
That's awesome. So what are some of the trends that you see today in franchising, other than what we just spoke about with some of the health food stores and such?
So, well, that's one.
Okay,
Healthy lifestyles, different flavors of children's enrichment.
Okay.
Boutique fitness
Okay.
is a big one that we see. These different segments of, a bar theory, or a certain kind of yoga, or Pilates, and so
or like
versus
Orange Theory, I think we see those popping up everywhere.
Right. Those are popular. The men's segment in hair care and grooming. That's a booming segment. You guys have been ignored too much all these years.
I see that in storefronts, and I just get my hair cut at wherever, but wherever I can get in at the time. But I do see that. I see a lot of these really high-end, mahogany walls and these elaborate chairs, and so that's interesting. I've got to check that service out and see what that's all about. But that's becoming quite a trend.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's great.
All ages in that. But there's some, it's not a fancy frou-frou spa, but it's these businesses offer comfortable environments. The latest trends in men's hair care, products, and they do well.
Well, Leslie Cuban, I want to thank you so much for joining us again. You are our go-to in all things franchise, and we appreciate it very much for you to come into the studio and spend this time with us. I know you're extremely busy, and with your company FranNet here in Atlanta. For those of you that are looking to get into a franchise situation, check out FranNet. Give Leslie a call. She's going to steer you in the right direction. She's going to hold your hand through the entire process. That's what we're looking for, so we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The Atlanta Small Business Network, from startup to success. We are your go-to resource for small business news, information, and resources. Starting February 16th, you can find us every Saturday morning on CBS 46 and its sister station, Peachtree TV. For even more ASBN, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And while you're here, don't forget to subscribe to our email newsletter for all of the latest from the Atlanta Small Business Network. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make it a great day.
Thanks for watching Atlanta Small Business Show. This has been a JBF Business Media production.